Right, this is seriously the third or maybe even fourth time I've attempted to cast this game. Had various technical issues and then had some sort of Bose invasion. So let's get it underway. This is just a bizarre map choice. This is Green Acres, which I think dates back certainly to Heart of the Swarm and possibly even to Wings of Liberty. This is a really old map. Not only is it old, it's also a 3v3 map. So location 1, location 2, location 3 is normally what goes on here. But anyway, these guys have chosen this as the map, and why are we looking at just this is a rubbish cast, isn't it? Already this is going wrong for me. This is the worst observing ever. Anyway, let's introduce the players. We've got Luke playing Protoss in the top right of the map. We've got Matticus as the Terran player in the bottom left ish. So it looks like Luke is interested in building a wall here. Personally, I wouldn't bother. You're playing against Terran, you know, and there's such large spaces at the side here that, you know, even if you wall this region off and you expand into these locations, this one and this one, you know, look how long the walk is to get from one to the other. If anything comes at you, medevacs flying in, Reapers jumping up, or just air units or whatever, you know, by the time you walk around there, it's ridiculous. So personally, I'd probably choose to expand out the front here. It probably makes more sense to do that, if anything. But, you know, no matter. I suppose if you did finish this wall, it might prevent a scout from getting in. But look how many buildings you're going to require to actually fully wall that off. So, look, kind of half scouting. He's sent a worker across the map here. Hasn't quite looked around with it yet, but presumably is about to do so. So the worker will find his opponent, and we'll see what's going on. And what is going on? Largely barracks building. Slightly curious that that's a reactor building on the barracks there. That would worry me if I was Luke. If I go in and I see that there's two racks up and that one of them's building a reactor, you know, normally you only go reactor first if you're planning some sort of push, some sort of reasonably early push. Normally it would be a tech lab you would build. The reactor means that you want to get Marines out two at a time. So, you know, a pretty old classic Terran build was to go two racks, one with a tech lab, one with a reactor. The tech lab racks you build Marauders from and you research combat shield, and the reactor barracks you crank out Marines. And you march across the map then with maybe two Marauders and 8 or 10 Marines. And it's quite a nasty push. It hits pretty early. You've got the combat shield upgrade by the time you arrive, and it's hard to hold. You don't really see it so much in sort of Legacy of the Void, but it is a thing. So, you know, maybe that is what we're going to see from Matticus here. I notice he has now got the tech lab, although no upgrades started just yet. Doesn't quite have the minerals for it, actually. But he is cranking out the Marauder, and he is pumping up Marines two at a time. So this worker is in a good position to have another little sweep through and check what's going on. Matticus with the early engineering bay. I don't know whether that's for upgrades or a turret. Playing against Protoss as Terran, this is about the time that I would suggest building a turret. You know, it is possible to get an Oracle into your opponent's base by about 3.5 minutes if you sort of rush that out as a Protoss player. Typically, or more typically if it isn't such a rush, somewhere about the 4-minute mark is when an Oracle is likely to arrive, if that's what your opponent is doing. And of course, at this time, Matticus has no sight of his opponent whatsoever, so he doesn't know what's happening. These units are setting off across the map, and I think they're going to have a good time, to be honest. The reason I say that is there isn't really anything here but this one zealot. That one zealot will get an absolute pissed in. He isn't going to last very long at all against what's coming. You know, the Marauders will just do so much damage to this. I'd really like for Matticus to get Combat Shield or even Concussive Shell for the Marauders when he's playing this build. Concussive Shell is a very, very quick upgrade. It doesn't take long. You know, you can pretty much start that when your unit's set out and it'll be done by the time you get to the other side of the map. Combat Shield does take a little bit longer, but it's of such value to you. It just makes such a big difference in these engagements. You know, on this occasion, I don't think it's going to matter much. He's just got more stuff. So overwhelmingly, he is likely to just smash this. There you can see that he is ahead substantially in army supply, and actually look, just doesn't have anything. This one zealot is all there is, and when that dies there's nothing. So yeah, focuses on the pylon, which is, you know, that's the good plan. I'm not sure why he's turning around here. You know, if your opponent had stuff to defend with, it would be attacking you. It isn't, so just push on in general. Yeah, so a pretty quick game. What I like, and I will mention here, is that Matticus hasn't just sort of said, oh, that seems to have been successful and sat back. He is building a factory. He has got the expo up. So, you know, he's got things happening that mean that he can continue this game if this turns out to be unsuccessful. If, for example, I don't know, a Dark Templar shows up and you've got no detection here and it just slices your way through these and you've got to go home, you've got something to fall back on. You are getting upgrades, you are building workers, you are building a factory, all good things. The Immortal's going to come out, and you know, while the Immortal is fantastic, especially against these Marauders, without support it will die pretty quickly. There's a lot in the bank for Luke. I think he's slightly guilty of over econing and under building, really, under building units. Arguably, given that he had a probe in position, he should have seen this coming. But, you know, it's difficult. It is a novice league, and you go in and, you know, I often talk about people scouting and making sure that they do scout and those types of things. It's all well and good to send a worker into your opponent's base, but you do also have to know what it is you're looking for. And it does take a while of playing the game before you're able to spot things like, well, if I see these two barracks straight away with a reactor building first, there's going to be an early push. It's almost certain. I say it's almost certain. Obviously, in the Novice League, it might just mean your opponent doesn't really know what they're doing and they've spammed the C button. Who knows? Anyway, that is the GG. So the first game goes to Matticus.